We're going to talk about 3 rules for pricing your indie game coming up. What's up guys, Tim Ruswick here from Game Dev Underground, helping you build, finish, and launch better games. Today we're talking about pricing, but pricing more specifically on your indie game. And there's a lot of different ways to price stuff, right? This is always a question that comes up, like how much should I charge? And this is a question in every industry, not just in game development. Like I remember when I started my marketing company, it was like, you know, the same service can go for $100 or $1,000 or $10,000 depending on who's doing it, who's involved, what kind of, you know, workload needs to be done, how much testing, all that kind of stuff. So it was, when I got started, it was really like complex. Like how do I know what to charge? And when I started selling products online, I had a really weird experience too, because my first product was a piece of software that helped developers get their assets into game engines. And I put it online for $5. And first of all, I was terrified to do that because selling on the internet, holy shit, that's scary. But secondly, like, not many people bought it, and I was kind of discouraged. But a few months later, what I decided to do is raise the price to $30. And for some reason, that shot up sales. Like way more people bought it at 30 than they ever did at 5. And it was a weird experience for me. That's actually what propelled my interest into marketing, because I was like, this is completely illogical. This doesn't make any logical sense. This is all emotional. Why would someone pay, not why would they pay the money, because the software was worth it, but why would more people buy this product at a higher price than they did at a lower price? That defies all logic, right? And so that kind of got me into marketing, which got me in. I priced a bunch of stuff, and over the time I've learned a lot of stuff. So let's talk about number 1, which I actually did this backwards, but I'm going to tell you why it's important for you to do. But rule number 1 is going down is always easier than going up. I was lucky because when I raised the price of my software, it was a new version. So like I had an excuse to do that. But generally, when you price something, it's always easier to start high and go lower than to go low and then try and raise it later. Because if you charge too little, you can't really come back from that. Especially when you're not on your own platform. So like, again, for me, I have my own landing page, I have my own website. I could do whatever the hell I want. But if you're on Steam or something, people see your game goes up, you know, twice the price. They're going to complain. They're going to leave negative reviews. The shit's going to happen. And you got to keep that in mind. Like people don't, it's a weird feeling. It almost feels like betrayal to some people when you increase your price. So generally, if you're debating between a higher and lower price, pick the higher price because it's always easier to go lower than to go higher. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is you need to decide the comparison. And here's what I mean by that. If you've ever browsed Steam, you've ever went through their catalog, you'll notice that a lot of really good selling games, they have different versions. And the reason they have different versions is simple. Because if you were browsing through Steam and you find a game that you potentially like, and I say Steam, but it can be any portal out there. You find a game that you like for $10. But then you find another game that you like for $10. What you're now doing is, you know, you're comparing the two for your $10. You're saying, oh, well, this looks cool, but this looks cool, but this looks cool. When you have multiple versions, you can do what's called controlling the comparison. And this is a marketing technique. Essentially is if you have, let's say you have your game and you have the game bundled with the soundtrack. Now you can allow the person to compare those two items rather than your game to something else, which is always better. And generally, this is really weird. And by the way, there's a book called Predictably Irrational, which I have here on my desk, which is a great read on this. You should definitely read this if you're thinking about pricing your game. But essentially, like let's say you have your game and your soundtrack for your game bundled at $20, but then your game is $10. This is really powerful, and here's why. You're going to say, hey, why is the game and the soundtrack $20? That's a ripoff. The game, I'll just buy the game. But you see the magic of what happens there? You see, the fact that this other thing that you don't really want is way higher than this other thing that you do want. And so the price of $10 becomes ridiculously low in your mind because you're controlling the comparison. You are controlling. Now they're comparing two things that you made and they're choosing that rather than a thing you made and a thing you didn't make, because you can lose a sale that way. So controlling the comparison is really important. And it's also important to inflate prices like this sometimes because it makes your game seem like a better deal. And I see this a whole bunch on Steam games. I see this really often. I'm surprised it's not like a mainstream knowledge at this point, because it's, you know, something I've always done. I see Tiny Build do it. I see a bunch of different publishing companies do it. So it's really simple. Rule number 3, when in doubt, test. Now, I was really surprised when I got back into the indie game industry that marketing took a back seat, and that this whole testing and landing pages and A/B tests and all this marketing jargon that I was used to in the marketing realm was like non-existent in indie game development. And essentially in a marketing company, we test everything. Like in my marketing company, we would legit test everything. I had a client that I worked with. She had beauty care products. I forget what they were now, but they were something that was really popular in Asia, and she was bringing it to the United States, but she had no idea what to charge. She wanted a high-end brand, but she wasn't sure where she was at. And so one of the things that we did was we took a modest budget of like $1,000, $2,000, and those are modest budgets relative to the products. So, you know, you don't even have to do this with 1,000. You can do it with 100. But we set up different ads on different networks. We set up on Google and Facebook, and we basically targeted her target audience. We sent ads to a landing page, and the landing page, when someone got to the landing page, they would see one of 3 versions at random. So it would pick a random version to show them. And we tested prices of like $39, $59, and $99. We tested a bunch of different stuff, and we ended up testing a lot more prices than that too. But essentially what we found was, for some reason, one price worked better than the other. For whatever reason, we don't know why. I still don't know why to this day, but one price worked better than the other. So you can test. You can do tests. And the thing about this too, by the way, we didn't actually have the product for sale. You can test with live products, but you don't have to. So when they would actually click buy now on like the $59 product, we'd be like, oh, this product is coming soon. Enter your name and email to get notified when it's available. So we didn't actually lose any money by, you know, selling low or anything like that. It was just a test. So this is something you could do with your game very easily. You can make it, you know, you can set up a landing page that looks like it's ready to buy. You can get everything ready and split test different prices, and then have, when someone clicks there, just say, oh, game's not launched yet. It'll launch in, you know, whenever. Enter your name and email to let us know when you're there. And you can, all you got to do is track the clicks on those buttons, right? You track the conversion rate on those buttons, and what you end up with is hard data on what people are willing to pay for your game, what they want to pay. And what you'll find is the cheapest price isn't always the best price. It's really weird how that works out, but testing is really, really important, and I highly recommend you do it. It's a little technically complex, especially if you don't know how to do landing pages and stuff. You can use tools like Lead Pages or Unbounce.com that will help you build landing pages a little bit better, easier. They're drag and drop tools, so that makes it really easy. But, you know, think in terms, like actually put some thought into this. Like, don't just say, hey, I'm going to charge $10 and just throw it up there. Really kind of think through this whole process. Test with your audience. Decide their comparison. And remember, it's always easier to go down than it is to go up. So those are the 3 rules, I think, for pricing an indie game. If you've got any experience or anything you'd like to share, please leave in the comment below, because I'd love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them as well. But once again, I'm Tim Ruswick, and I'll see you guys next time.